Howdy, my name is Sean Patton from Stalking Savvy, and we're here at Wellen Park today to talk about one of our biggest sites that we've helped restore with an 80-acre lake and over 100 acres of surrounding lakes, ponds, and wetlands that we help manage here. And right here is a perfect example of some recently planted shoreline. So this shoreline right here is less than a year old, and as you can see, we have several good species here. We have a golden canna lily starting to form a little higher up, some Gulf spikerush, Eliocharis interstincta right there, that is acting as a great erosion control. We have pickerel weed with the purple flowers, which is great for birds, butterflies, bees, and wildlife to come. They nectar at it. It's also eaten by quite a few birds. And we also have bulrush, which is the tallest dark blue plant right there that attracts a lot of birds to hide in, and it acts as shelter as well as erosion control. By having all these different plants, we help to ensure that there's erosion control, variety of native birds and fish, and we help to resist disease or accidental herbicide damage. There are three main plants commonly used in retention ponds and lake restoration: duck potato, Gulf spikerush, and pickerel weed. However, this is just a small fraction of the many plants available in bulk for restoration, and that might naturally find their way into your ponds, lakes, and wetlands. One of my favorites is Sagittaria latifolia, or arrowhead. This beautiful plant grows slightly shallower than your traditional duck potato, but has a much more attractive leaf and is better at shading out algae in these shallow areas. Having a variety of plants can make your shorelines more erosion resistant and your plantings more disease resistant while attracting more wildlife. So get some diversity in your depths. One of the biggest issues managers face, and one that homeowners complain about probably the most, is algae blooms. Now, we have two main kinds of algae blooms in Florida. We have planktonic, which is where your water turns a soupy color or is discolored, and it's evenly distributed throughout most of the water column. And then we have filamentous. This is algae that grows off the bottom of the pond in large mats, and then as it grows off the bottom, it breaks off and forms tangled moving mats along the surface of the water. This is probably the hardest one to kill and remove with herbicides. So what we can do here is we can do lots of native plants along the edge to help block the view so homeowners don't complain, and also help shade out the algae. We can use native aquatic plants that can compete with the algae, like this Cara. But the biggest thing we need to do is nutrient prevention. So one thing we did here at Wellen Park is we removed and cut down 72 tons of cattails and invasive plants to help prevent that from going back into the water. If we had simply sprayed and let everything go into the water, that would have heavily contributed to the algae. You want to spray as a last resort, not a first, because if you're constantly spraying, you're going to kill off a lot of your native vegetation and the plants that you need to help control this algae. And a lot of herbicides, even at labeled rates, can affect your invertebrates and your fish populations like copper. So if you want to deal with algae, you need to start at the shoreline. Reduce fertilizer. When you're dealing with plants in the water, you want to harvest. Biggest things that we always try to deal with is water clarity. When you have pollution or algae or constant disturbance of the water, you're going to have poor water clarity and quality. If you really want high quality water in your retention ponds, you need to have a few things, one of which is diverse plant life. And this includes plants going to the edge of the water, so not grass to the edge. You want a nice gentle slope to the edge of the pond with native plants. 4-to-1 or a 5-to-1 grade is better. The shallower the slope, the better your pond. And then you want underwater plants. As you can see out there, there's lots of Cara, also known as coontail, depending on the species. These are aquatic plants, and some are macroalgae that will have great water filtration characteristics, and they can even kill algae in the water and steal their nutrients, and that helps clear the water. And a lot of birds and ducks eat that. So if you want to have a beautiful clear pond, you need to have shallow slopes, lots of native plants above and below the water. Integrated pest management, or IPM, is one of the most important things any manager can do when they're managing a lake or a pond or their wetlands. And one of the big questions is, should we harvest out invasive plants, or should we cut them, spray them? How do we deal with this issue? Well, on this lake, we harvested out 72 tons of cattails. If we didn't harvest out those 72 tons of cattails and just sprayed them, they would have gone into the water and contributed to algae pollution and nutrient pollution, where we would have had tons of water quality issues. But then we also have an issue where in some places, like to my left, it was unfeasible to harvest. We couldn't get our aquatic harvesters in. There was too much other kinds of vegetation, and it was just not feasible. So we did a mixed IPM strategy here where we cut and removed, and you can see how much better that looks. The cattails didn't come back in the deeper water, but we're getting really good recruitment of pickerelweed and spikerush back. Whereas on the left, you can see we did a lot of spraying, and there's less recruitment because we are good at our jobs. We spot spray, we're doing things right, but you can see that there's more room for error when you're spraying. And by using the biology of the plants you're working with and the depths of the water, the topography, you need to pick the right tool for the right place. You want to be sure you're using your chemical, biological, physical, social, and cultural controls appropriately. It'd be great if we could just prevent invasive species from coming in, but if we can't, you always see if there's a biological control first. We don't have anything big enough to eat cattails here in Florida, so we went to the mechanical controls. And then, after we had mechanically harvested everything we could, we went to the last resort tool in our toolbox, herbicides. Sometimes you do need them, but whenever possible, I try to avoid them. So behind me, you'll see a large group of ducks, and we have dozens of different species of large bird, fish, and mammal here at Wellen Park. One of the nice things to attract these is to have a good base ecosystem. And in addition to all the different native plants that we put in, we also stocked a large variety of native fish. This includes golden shiners, flagfish, bluegill sunfish, red ear sunfish, mosquito fish, and a lot of small fish to help support a base population of fish. And while all water bodies are required to have mosquito fish, because they eat mosquito larvae, most lakes aren't required to have any other fish. And if you want a big, healthy bass population or tons of different birds, you need to plant their food. Many ducks are herbivores, so we have native Chara and Vallisnerian aquatic plants that they can eat. If you want hooded mergansers, wading birds, or big bass, you can't just put in bluegill and red ear sunfish, which are the two most commonly stocked fish. We put in the Florida flagfish to help eat algae and to move that algae up into the bigger fish, or golden shiners to help control midge flies and algae. By having multiple algae eaters and a more diverse fish population, the ecosystem is more resilient to change, and our bass and birds are a lot healthier and fatter.